Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. We have today episode number 155, and we have a special guest returning for a second time with us. We have Gord Lemon from the Real Estate Investment Institute. Good morning, Gord, and welcome back.
Yeah, great to be back. Thank you.
Great to have you back as well. And we had probably one of the most popular episodes that we recorded with you the last time you were on, which was quite some time ago. It's towards the beginning of our recording session. And we wanted to have you back because talking about investing, talking about investors is a really monumentally important topic. So we're really excited to be diving in with you again today.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be back. And real estate investing is always for the forefront of my own mind, but it needs to be at the forefront of, I think, every real estate agent's mind, and really bringing it around to their clients as the one of the best and most trusted wealth builders that has been out there.
So, Gord, we got so much to cover with you on this topic, but maybe just before we get into the meat and potatoes of it, just do a little commercial, explain to the listeners exactly what REI does and how you can, what your business is, and so they understand where you're coming from, and then they'll understand your expertise in answering the rest of the questions we have for you.
Sure. The Real Estate Investment Institute is it is a training company, and we train realtors on how to build wealth through the investment real estate space to provide wealth not only for themselves and build wealth and by that I mean generational wealth, but also learn to do that for their clients. And this was created as a result of me being an investor, and I've been an investor in real estate for 35 years now, and both in Canada and the US. And I found everywhere that I went to build a team in a particular city, and I'll really do the Coles notes on this, but I inherently could not find realtors that understood me as an investor. And I got into the real estate investing training space, teaching, the public to become real estate investors. And after training over 25,000 people, if I surveyed all of them, and they would have the same result that I had, is when they are tasked to, once they've learned about real estate investing, wherever they did or through me, they're tasked to go out and build a team and find a knowledgeable realtor that can really head that team up to be able to guide them and consult with them and be with them on their wealth building journey through real estate. And the problem is they're like a needle in a haystack. They're never taught, realtors are never taught about the investing space, and therefore, unfortunately, try to fake it until they make it. But there's just so much faking and not a lot of making, if you will.
Gord, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
We hear all the time from realtors that they know how to work with investors. Realtors think that they have the skill sets, that they really understand what investors want. Where is the disconnect? Like, where is really the disconnect? And how can we, explain that disconnect from the point of view of the investor?
Sure. A couple things on that. So this is obviously a huge issue in the real estate space because most realtors are trained to help people buy and sell homes and not necessarily evaluate properties from an investment perspective. And investors, or a first-time investor or a veteran investor, they're looking for someone who understands things like cash flow and ROI and creative financing and long-term wealth building strategies, but the average realtor isn't equipped with that knowledge. And what I've found throughout my experience with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of realtors, both in Canada and the US. And by the way, I am Canadian and all that, but I have experienced the same thing in the US, which is if I provide my investment criteria to a realtor, they'll send me an email drip of, let's say rental properties for sake of one particular strategy. And they don't know. So I'll say, okay, I'm interested in 123 Elm Street. And their first knee-jerk reaction is, well, do you want to go see it? So in essence, they're treating me just like a home buyer. And so if I say yes, we get to the property and they're like, oh, it looks in pretty good shape, whatever. But we have no conversation about the numbers of the property, and no precursor information has come about the numbers on the property. And in a sense, they're giving away their power to the client, me, the client, because they don't know what process I'm going through to even choose a property, right? So I'm not looking at the kitchens, I'm not looking at the pictures online necessarily like a home buyer would, going, "Ooh, I like I like the paint, and I like the kitchen, and I like the amenities around it, blah blah blah." I am looking at the numbers, and if I can't find the numbers or I'm not provided the numbers, then I'm disgruntled, if you will, with that realtor, and they get fired before they even know they were, before anything moves forward. But the fact that they're just sending me a list of properties because they've put, if I'm looking in this particular example, looking for a rental property, they go rental property, tenants, blah, 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 and their MLS filter, sending me an email drip. And this is the extent of the work that they do. And again, they're giving away that power because they don't know why I'm picking it, what process I've gone through to choose a property or not choose a property. And coming back to your first question of why the Real Estate Investment Institute was created and the training that we provide is if I'm an investor and I provide the criteria that I'm looking for, if realtors got off their hamster wheel and just looked and understood how to evaluate properties and found one that met my criteria, then they're in charge of how they understand how to evaluate, how to analyze that property. And then they're sending me the evaluation based on what I'm looking for. But the realtor would know then this actually makes money. Here's the cash flow or negative cash flow, but the negative cash flow is made up through long-term hold over time, and the ROI is positive, and these are the reasons. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, it makes
otherwise,
a lot of sense.
yeah,
But and I'm assuming with this, from what I know about your business and everything, there's sort of two different categories of realtors that should be taking advantage of it. One is the realtor that really specialize in finding people's homes that doesn't have this expertise, but they should learn this and understand this and have this in their back pocket so they can use it for their own purposes. And then there's certain clients that are buying properties as investments, so now they know how to do it. And the other category, I guess, would be people that really want to specialize in investment properties. They want to make this their main focus of their business. But either way, it seems worthwhile to go through this training process.
David, it's every single homeowner, and I think every single Canadian is pre-convinced with the idea that your home is your biggest investment, right? So I think when realtors don't look at real estate through the lens of helping people solve their financial problems, helping people level up, helping people achieve their goals, helping people build generational wealth, I think they're leaving a huge portion of the business on the table, right? And instead of trying to catch that homeowner when they're transacting, when they're buying and selling, out of all the properties listed on MLS, only 4% of the houses are ever listed on the market. It's a very small percentage. So you have 120,000 realtors competing for a very small piece of the pie, right? But the other 96% of homeowners that don't have their house listed on the market and not in the market looking for a house, they're interested in leveling up. They're interested in, making an impact to their finances. They want to go on more vacations. They want to quit their 9 to 5. They want to retire early. And there's this whole idea that Canadians are so pre-convinced that your home is your biggest investment. And it just seems that realtors are not looking at real estate through that lens, and they're leaving a huge portion of the business on the table.
It's so true. And, there's such a misalignment of goals because, traditional home buyers, they're looking for the perfect kitchen or, a good school district or just a move-in ready home. But
Gord, we're losing you a little bit. Your
about
internet
numbers,
connection is not stable.
get frustrated.
We lost you there a little bit.
Oh, nuts.
Yeah, maybe just repeat what you said because it cut out.
I'm repeating what I'm saying.
Yeah, the last part.
Yeah, just the last sentence because it was completely mumbled.
Okay. So I was saying that traditional home buyers are looking for the perfect kitchen or move-in ready properties, but investors care about numbers and they're looking at rents, they're looking at appreciation potential, they're looking at how to maximize returns over time. And when a realtor doesn't speak that language, it's not just investors that get frustrated with them, but realtors, they miss the opportunity to create a lifelong client from that home buyer and being able to have a wealth building conversation with that home buyer about, hey, you're going to have this much equity in your property. Maybe where do you want to be in 10 years, in 20 years? And as your equity increases and you could actually leverage that equity, for instance, then we could start you on a wealth building journey and get you into your first property. But you have to be able to build that trust with that client to have that conversation and be able to speak logically through the numbers down the road. How much money do you need in retirement? And then reverse engineer that and start today with where they are and what they have financially to begin their journey.
So when you both have become realtors and you've gone through the licensing process, and David's dealing with the current new crop of realtors and going through the process. I've never gone through that, but is there any aspect of this that's taught in the licensing process, or is it just a little, they touch on it for a day and you sort of move on? So you guys found there's a need to really create this specialized training? Like, is it not dealt with at all when someone just becomes a realtor and gets licensed?
Well, I think David can speak more to that because I became a realtor many, many years ago when there was one course and one exam. So, but it's my understanding, and David can speak to this more intelligently, but in the same way doctors do like an afternoon of nutrition in their 7 years or whatever of their schooling, I think it's probably about the same. But David, why don't you speak to that?
And I think it's less time than that on bedside manner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's one articling course that's, about an hour in length on real estate investing, and that's the end of it. It's not very popular to say the least. But I came across a staggering statistic recently, where Stats Canada actually analyzed all the MLS transactions and found that 25% of all MLS transactions are investor driven. So like I said, the trend is out there and it's a massive trend. And I just find that our industry isn't adapting fast enough and isn't really giving consumers what the consumer is looking for. And Gord, just going back to, the beginning of your career, um, not only did you invest in real estate, but then you also transitioned into teaching the general public how to invest in real estate. And you've done that for, a number of years. I think you shared with me that you've taught over 25,000 people how to invest in real estate. So can you just talk to us a little bit about, what frustrations did that group of investors have towards realtors? What were some of the pain points? Because, maybe if realtors hear from that perspective, what the investors are saying about our industry, maybe the lights, are going to get turned on, and maybe they're going to realize that, it's time to step up.
Yeah, for sure. Like I mentioned earlier, if I surveyed those 25-ish thousand people, they would all have frustrating stories about their relationships with realtors. Um, so, first and foremost, a realtor that wants to work with investors, and I want to even preface this by saying, when you said 25% of all transactions are investor driven, and with the amount of potential business that's out there that so many realtors are just turning their back on, when the competition for clients is so high, it makes no sense to turn your back on 1/4 of the whole market. But
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
So first and foremost, a realtor working with investors needs to understand the fundamentals of real estate investing, like understanding how to do a cash flow analysis. Does the property make money? And of course, in the GTA, it's difficult to find a property that makes positive cash flow. But here's the thing, and this is a fatal flaw that most realtors and the public have, is they're only looking now at cash flow. If there's no positive cash flow, then they discard the property. Well, there's other aspects. There's in a buy and hold property, there's up to 8 profit centers surrounding that to make money on that property, and cash flow is just one of those 8. So holding a property over time, will it generate strong returns over time? Well, you've got the mortgages being paid down. You've got appreciation. So these things can totally counterbalance a negative cash flow property. And then if you refinance it 5 years down the road, then you can
Gordon,
actually,
I'm gonna reel you back into my original question. Like, let's talk about the investors
yeah.
and the frustration that they're feeling, right? Because I really want our listeners to kind of understand it from a different perspective, right? And you've worked one-on-one with these investors. And the one thing I'll say is, I remember Seth Godin did a podcast, and he had a question and answer period at the end. He did a great presentation. He's a big time real estate investor, huge influencer. And I asked him the question, Seth, how do you find the right realtor? And do you remember the answer that he gave me that I shared with you? He stumbled, and he basically said, well, you have to ask them some tough questions. You have to find out how many investment properties they own. You have to kind of, look at their social media and see how active they are in the investing space. Like, even influencers that are doing this for a living, that have years and years and years of experience, even they struggle with finding the right realtors to sort of help them on their journey. And, even they can't articulate, like, how do you find a realtor that can really help you on this journey of being successful? So I want to kind of reel you back in and, like, let's talk about those pain points, because I want our industry to really understand, what these investors are feeling out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, uh, yeah, you really described that. And yeah, that answer from Seth Godin is really the wrong answer. I find it, if so, realtors, the frustration that investors have is being able to talk with a realtor who understands the language of investing. who understands how to find opportunities. And David, we both know that, you know, veteran investors, they're like 70% of the transactions that veteran investors typically make are not on the MLS. So they're transacting off the MLS. So, and
And
most
how can you say
realtors,
that, Gord? Like preface that a little bit. How can you make that statement so confidently?
because so many deals happen within an investor network, and and if and realtors who are engaged in that network and have investors in their network and are taking them on their journeys, like a lot of our graduates are, they know where every client is on their journey. So, for instance, if if you are a first-time investor and you're basically looking for, you know, a duplex, but I've got a client, Sarah, who's looking to buy, she's ready to level up into a fourplex or sixplex. And I've got Joe who has a sixplex and he's got another fourplex or what have you, and he's looking for a 20-unit apartment building, and so on and so on. You get the point. It's basically connecting those dots, making transactions within your network because you know where everybody's looking to move towards, because you've already discussed their goals with them. You know where they want to be. And so you're able to make multiple transactions within your own network. But also, a further
See, Gord,
step,
and the way you've explained that, that doesn't sound very scary, but
no,
whenever we discuss, off MLS listings, and when you throw a statistic like veteran investors do 70% of the transactions off MLS listings, um, most realtors get scared of a statistic like that because they're so used to just putting the property in MLS and letting MLS do all the heavy lifting for them, right? But when you explain it like, you sit down with a person and you know where they are, you know where they want to go, you know that they're always looking for opportunities because that's how they're sort of wired and that's how they're built. And you have a group of these people, and you know where in the journey they are, and you're just connecting dots, and that's how you're doing transactions. That doesn't sound very scary. In fact, it sounds like an unbelievable way of building your business and helping multiple people level up at the same time. Like it's the smart way of doing it.
exactly. And not only that, and like our graduates who benefit from being in a like-minded community, they so I mean that connecting the dots, although sounds simple, but maybe you're lacking one piece. You can be integrating with other realtors who have their own network and have their taking their clients on their journeys. And maybe you need to say, hey, do you know anybody that is looking for XYZ type of property? And then so you're working within your own network and you're able to leverage other real estate investment specialists, graduates, other networks. So it's working within that community of those like-minded investment agents, and everybody's helping themselves because they're all looking to help all their clients move forward in their journeys.
Have you ever experienced, dealing with all these investors and talking to all these investors? Have you ever experienced situations where investors have just given up on the idea of investing in real estate because they haven't had the right realtor by their side? And, what do you think the consequences of that are?
Yeah, I've talked to many frustrated investors, and I mean, if you think about it, there's lots of training companies out there that pump out lots of students every time they do a weekend seminar, and they're all taught to go out and now like start your journey, like let's get going. And they buy mentorships, and those mentors will tell them, all right, let's go find a realtor, etc. And a lot of them hooked up with the wrong realtor, or the realtor that has been the family realtor forever, or their mom's realtor, their uncle, is a realtor. And so consequently, it becomes the blind leading the blind, and they either enter into a bad deal or just simply get frustrated and go, you know what, real estate, or after one bad deal, it's like, real estate investing doesn't work because I lost money, and it all really stems from a realtor's poor advice, because like I said off the top of this podcast, there's a lot of faking it in the market. And I just want to touch on that. So many realtors, if you ask them, hey, do you work with investors? They go, of course I do. But again, their experience has been sending somebody an email drip. They choose a property, they somehow buy the property. They've been treated all along by the realtor as a home buyer, but they've lucked out, and that person has bought a rental property. And so now they work with investors, and they can, safely convince themselves that they work with investors. And you've just lucked out. You don't really work with investors.
Yeah, it certainly a big issue in our industry, and
Yeah.
it's great to um, be working alongside you, Gord, and really helping the industry level up and helping realtors think, very differently about their business. So we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think we're going to have you back in the next episode, where we're going to talk about, why this is such a paramount um, shift for realtors, and why realtors really have to be paying attention to this market segment, and how they can easily double their GCI by really learning the benefits of helping people unlock the power of investing, from and really looking at real estate in a different lens. So we're really looking forward to having you on the next podcast, and looking at it from the realtor's perspective, what it can do for their business. So thank you so much for joining us. Great conversation. We'll have you back next time on the David and
Right.
David on Real Estate
I will see you
Podcast.
soon.